You unlock this benefit with the key of Patreon. Beyond is another dimension. A dimension of thought. A dimension of speculation. A dimension of mind. You're moving into a land of both waffle and substance. Of things and ideas. You've just crossed into the podcast zone.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Trekking Through the Twilight Zone. This is Julian and I working our way through the Twilight Zone episode by episode, and we're well into season 2. And all I can say is I promise to tell you the whole truth. Julian, how you doing? And what were your thoughts on this episode?
I like this episode. I don't think it's amazing, but I do like it's a cliche of the used car salesman, right? I mean, especially it's a classic American sort of stock character. And it's sort of, I mean, those are sort of fun stories. And he sold a car that is supposedly haunted, but really it's sort of cursed, where its owner has to tell the truth. And so he struggles. And comedy ensues.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I actually kind of like this episode. It was another sort of, it was fun. It was one of those sort of, like, it was relatively silly. I was weirded out, but kind of liked the ending.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of this sort of guy who's this sort of like consummate sort of car salesman, sort of like, and you have this scene of him selling an absolute lemon to these kids. But then when he buys the A-type, whatever it is, that is this cursed car, he then can't stop saying sort of like, no, this one's a death trap. And when I say, it'll keep running, like, it'll keep running to the end of the block, and then you have to repair it and do this. I actually thought it was some of the dialogue and the sort of the way that they used the double entendres for sort of like how he describes the vehicles was quite nice. And I like the fact he also gets caught out by his employee when he gets questioned, because so he has like a subordinate, like, who works for him. And he's, I'd like to talk to you about the raise, and then he can't not say, yeah, I've been lying to you all this time. Like, I've never given a raise. I've just have people on the hook until they realise, and then they leave and they bring in the next sort of like schmuck. I thought that was actually really good.
Yeah, I quite like that. And, there's room for these comedic Twilight Zone episodes. And, I don't think that it amounts to an awful lot. It's not going to be anyone's favorite episode, but, it's good fun. And, I do like these episodes. The ending, I mean, I do think that I also like the sense of implications, right? When you've got something like this, part of the question is, well, all right, so, where do I go from here in a universe with a cursed car that forces people to tell the truth? And so a politician comes to visit him, and he lets the cat out of the bag. And the politician knows, like, well, I'll be destroyed if I buy this car. So, but easily as a writer, you could have the politician get the car and, ha ha ha, you hear him on the radio, and, politics are liars like a used car salesman. But then apparently Khrushchev is visiting the United States, and we don't know this right away, but he sells the car to Khrushchev. And the idea is always that he is giving this to a politician or to Khrushchev as sort of an example of a proper working class American's car. I'm not sure that really works with Khrushchev, and it is weird. I mean, it's a legit weird ending, but I do quite like the idea of using this silly gimmick of an idea of a car that forces you to tell the truth and injecting it into real world politics, and using it as a weapon of state.
No, I really liked it, especially that conversation he has with the politician. Where the politician at first is like, "Oh, you boyo, hey, reverse psychology. I know what you're onto." And he's like, "No, like, this car is crap. Like, like, the head gasket is cracked. The tires are wasted. Like, it's not going to get, like, he's like, I can't not." And then the politician believes him, which is what's, eventually the politician gets bought into it. He's like, "Well, I can't have this car because, like you say, it would ruin me." And so he's like, but I've got to sell it to someone. That's how you move it on. And she was like, well, I'm not buying it. Well, who could you sell it to? And they actually have a joke about like who they could sell it to. Like, I think there's some politician that he's running against.
Yes.
And they're like, oh, you could try to sell it to, I could try and sell it to him. And they're like, oh, that'd be funny. I like a bit of a prank. And then they're like, well, this guy would be more interesting. And it turns out to be Khrushchev, obviously, who's the Russian leader at the time. However, one of the things I find that's most interesting about the reason Khrushchev buys the car is that he has bought it to be propaganda, to show that American cars are crap. So that's because he says it, because he can't not lie. So when he's selling to like Khrushchev's sort of subordinate, sort of like lackey or whatever, he's like, no, like, yeah, I've told you the full truth. It's fine. This is a traditional American car, but it's this and this. Like, so they're like, oh no, this is perfect. That's why they've bought it, so they can go home and be like, look at this American engineering. It's an absolute joke and all this other stuff. But then, not knowing that actually it forces him to tell the truth. So I kind of like that there's that sort of like comeuppance for it. But they have, it's not. It's weird that it's Khrushchev, and Khrushchev actually goes to. Not only does he go to the car lot, he then drives away in the in the car he's bought. That's all very bizarre. But I kind of like that, like you said, that they've introduced this idea that he's buying it to sort of for propaganda purposes, but it's going to blow up in his face and hilarity will ensue in sort of the USSR.
Yeah, no, I do like that. And there is this sort of implication, I mean, that Russia is a totalitarian state and lies aren't necessary, which was quite correct. I mean, Khrushchev certainly lied. I think today it seems, very odd, especially having followed the American politicians. I mean, it's like, well, I like that the American politician says when he's talking about his rival and how it would be good to say, he says, well, he never gives a speech that he doesn't lie. And it's like, you've already confessed that you're a liar. But I find this very realistic that, it's like, look, lying is part of this job. I mean, this is overly cynical depiction of politicians, but lying is part of this job. But you don't strain it that much, right? I mean, you don't pull a Donald Trump and just make up facts. This other guy is doing that, and this sort of shades degrees of evil or of lying there. But then, Khrushchev is like on another level. And I do like the discussion, the sort of implication that a totalitarian state would really collapse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if the people knew the truth, sort of thing.
Well, if you couldn't maintain the house of lies.
Yeah. No, I do. I like that, and I do think that I say it's sort of the quick escalation is a bit odd. But I like the implications of it. And again, it's one of those sort of like, I like one thing. I like the start of the episode, because an old man brings the car to the sort of the lot to sell to the second car salesman, and he's even like, yeah, no, I'll take $25 for it. And there's even he weirdly sort of, the old man seems more savvy. He's obviously lived with this car for a while, but like he seems more savvy about how to get round the truth in order to sell the car than the second-hand car salesman.
Yes, I think you're right about that.
And I kind of like that he's obviously had to do this for a while, so he's able to sort of like use words and tone to sort of get around it, which I kind of liked.
Yeah, although I did find myself wondering, like, you see the used car salesman Honeycutt, he confesses to the politician how this works, and it seems that is a precondition of selling it. And then he doesn't confess to Khrushchev's guy, yeah, this is a cursed car. I thought that was a precondition.
Well, I don't know if it's just sort of, if it is, or if it's just sort of like by this point it's just like, it's just a cursed car. I can't not like it's a cursed car. And so, but when he's been given the challenge of like, no, you've got to really try and sell it, it's like, he doesn't. I don't know, because like I said, the old man admits that it's cursed as well, doesn't he? So is it like you say, is it preconditioned or is it just exposition that they've got to put in?
Yeah, it's not exactly clear what the rules are of this. No. But
also,
I mean, it's fun.
It is, because the thing is, like, it goes. It's not just in the selling of cars. Like, this car will make you tell the truth the whole time. Like, he tries to tell, he tries to lie to his wife about where he's going. No, it's inventory time. It's inventory. So I'm going to be off playing poker with the boys. I mean, oh no, I'm not. I'm going to be. What do you mean? Where was I last time? Of course, I was playing with the poker with the boys. Oh, great! And then obviously he has to be honest with his employee about not getting a raise and stuff. So it's not just when it comes to selling cars. Like, this car impacts like your entire life.
I thought that was quite funny with the wife. I did sort of, and and seeing his pain as he says, like, right. And it was like, last week I was playing poker with the boys too, and he sort of grabs his mouth like.
Well, that moment, in watching that moment, I don't. There's a Jim Carrey film from, I think, the late 90s called Liar Liar.
Liar, yeah.
And I was like, oh, that film owes somebody some money.
Yeah, I do find myself sometimes thinking about lies and thinking about. I mean, here there's a sort of implication that not just used car salesmen, but that lying is sort of part of capitalism. Or salesmanship, and it's also part of being a politician, and also, I guess, part of having a marriage. And I sort of find myself, I'm at a point in my life where I basically never lie, and I am often shocked by how frequently other people lie about everything, and sort of like go through their lives lying about petty stuff, and I think, I don't remember the last time I told. I mean, why? I mean, I saw that scene and I think, really, is it that hard to, like, risk a fight with your wife to be like, yeah, I'm gonna have poker with the boys. No, you don't like this, but we can have a conversation about it.
I mean, the thing is, that does feed into one of those old tropes, doesn't it? Sort of like, the battling old married couple sort of trope. What I would say is that I think that, from my point of view, I mean, I'm not a compulsive liar or anything like that, but I definitely use lies.
That's going to go on the back of your next book. I'm not a compulsive liar, Scott.
Yeah. But there are lies that I am party to. There are two. Well, there's more than two. But like, think about it, when you have kids, like you are required to lie, when you sort of like say things like, yes, that's a wonderful painting you've done, well done, sort of the little things just to keep things. But then also, let's not be fair, like, don't spoil anything but Christmas, and these other things you have to sort of concede in. But there's also things of like, just to shut them up, like, where are you going? I'm just going to do this, like, 'cause there's no need to explain the whole scenario. But even within work, one of the things I find is, and again, this is cute. This is going to be interesting. When reporting back a progress report, there's a fine line between lying and, let's say, sort of holding back certain truths, because at that point the person above me doesn't need to know them. So what do they call it? Sort of lying by omission.
Right.
Is this thing going to happen on time? Yes. However, I could then go on to say, I have these issues, but I'm dealing with them. But they don't want to know. They just want to know that's the. So there's degrees of lying sort of thing as well that I find is, as a politician, I think that would be the question, wouldn't it? There's those degrees of lying, sort of, between outright lies and then massaging the truth to omissions.
Oh, and I don't think that what you're describing is lying. I mean, I think there's a question of, is it designed to deceive? And maybe it is in a certain respect, but you're taking care of it. It's not, where it becomes deceptive is when you're withholding something that, like, this is going to blow up, like, yes, it will be done. However, I'm well aware that this certain functionality is going to not be part of it because that's going to explode in a week and you don't know it yet. That would cross the line to me.
Yeah. It's interesting what you make a good point though, is that you're referring to crossing that line, and it's interesting where that line differs for different people. Where I do know certain, there are people that are very sort of, as you say, sort of like probably only have a passing relationship with the truth in some cases. And others that are very devout in telling exactly the way things are, to the extent, I mean, they sort of like sometimes go like, I don't know why my sort of personal relationships don't seem to work. It's like, yeah, because you have got this devotion to the truth and can't seem to deliver things in a softening way of like, do I look fat in this? Yes, you do.
Oh, I want to be that person.
Yeah.
I try to be more that person. I'm known for being blunt, but I also, especially about physical appearance, especially, I know what you're saying. I don't have kids, but I know what you're saying. Like, I mean, when I been a teacher, and you're not going to say, yeah, there's no hope for you, right? Not that that's really the truth, but I would say, yeah, you can do this. Say you're going to have to put work in, and I'm thinking, right, I know the odds are more against you than this other person, but I do believe what I'm saying, that you can do this if you put that work in. But yeah, I mean, there is this sort of there are these people. I want to be that blunt person. I would celebrate having this car. I want to have this car. I think it would make me a better person. I think it would improve my relationships. And I want to be, I mean, everything I've ever seen in my life suggests that being the person who says, no, I just don't find you attractive, is going to be taken better than, no, it's not that. It's just, that sort of waffly. Now people can stand that, but I do know some people. I'm thinking of my father, who is not a mean, doesn't have a mean bone in his body, but never has, if he says, right, I'm going to pick up this one thing. What that means is, yeah, there are 20 other stops that you're doing. There's a whole secret agenda, but I'm not lying, because I was in fact picking up that one thing. And I think, oh, you deceptive mother,
That's the omission. Yeah. But it's interesting how that lies. But again, like I say, going back to, circling back around to the episode before I roll out, this is one of those smaller episodes. Like, the only set is the parking, is the sales lot, and they've got these things, bits and pieces on it. I like these, again, like we've said this a lot, I like the smaller things and stuff. I like this as a little, as you said, sort of like it's almost like a short story kind of episode. Sort of like, it hasn't got great, it suggests greater implications, but in and of itself, it, like I say, it doesn't amount to a whole lot. But it's really good. I had fun with this episode. In each of the moments, it's one of those things where, as a whole, it's probably relatively forgettable, but in the moments, it's actually really well done and really good.
Yeah, it's a solid episode. It's middling for the Twilight Zone. I think maybe a little more fun than some episodes, but it's amazing how what the batting average of the show is.
Yeah,
this is quite a solid episode, and it's unremarkable for the Twilight Zone. There are a lot of shows that never have an episode this good.
Oh, no, exactly. I agree. Like you say, when it's compared to some of the ones we've watched, and I'm sure what's coming up, you go, yeah, it's not as good as those, but like taken on its own merit, no, this is a good episode of it. I enjoy it, and it delivers a fun twist. Okay, any final thoughts then for the whole truth?
No, I'm good. What's your blunt whole truth assessment?
No, I think like you say, it's a fun episode. There were bits in this that made me chuckle, but it when I got to the end, it's sort of like you say, it's not going to leave a massive impact on me, but I did enjoy it in and of the moment, which I think is the importance of it. And I kind of like the weirdness of the twist, actually, which I kind of enjoyed. There's just the oddness of it coming out of left field a little bit. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening along. And come and, if you want to find us, you know where to find us, and come and just tell us the truth. Are you enjoying what we're doing? But other than that, you will find us on the next episode. We'll talk to you soon.